Welcome to Julie Mango TV. I'm Robin Bourne, and today we have a full house to dive into short film No Entry. With me is director Kaleb D'Aguilar, writer Kim Taylor, and star Susan Aderin, who portrays Valerie. No Entry is about the relationship between a mother and her son. Their bond is threatened by Valerie's sudden uncertain status in the UK as she becomes yet another victim of the Windrush scandal. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone. So it's going to be a really good conversation. We got a lot of people in here today. So we do like to start off our chats with some celebration of where everybody is from. So can we just get you guys to talk about your heritage a little bit?
Okay, I'm Kaleb. I'm from Jamaica, born and raised, but I live in London now.
Hello, I'm Susan, and I was born in Lagos General Hospital in Nigeria. My parents brought me over here when I was 2.5 years old, and I've sort of lived here on and off since then. And almost got caught up in hostile environment because of that, because I came to this country the same time as Valerie did, at 2.5.
Hi, I'm Kim. I'm from Barbados. I'm a British citizen. I've been here for about 9 years now, going on 10. But yes, I've spent most of my life in Barbados.
Okay. And I mean, I never usually share, but for any of our viewers who don't already know, I was born in Jamaica. Hey. And I moved to Canada when I was 2. So I live in Toronto, Canada, but very, very yard to the bones. It's okay. Still had a little flavor in me. But let's get into the story. Kim, the story is vaguely inspired by the real case of Paulette Wilson. Can you tell us a little bit more about her story?
Well, I would have to say it's inspired by not just Paulette, but by quite a few of those stories. Paulette was very instrumental and very inspirational. I'm sorry about losing her because she fought for her freedom, basically. This was happening to her. This was like many other people, but she fought back. And with the help of her daughter, they really pushed to make sure that she stayed in Britain. Unfortunately and sadly, she passed before she could get the full brunt of what was deserved for her. And I just hope that my story in some way sheds even more light on what happened to her, but also what happened to so many and what is still happening, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. So I really like that the film is set in one location. It sort of amps up the isolation that Valerie experiences. Did she stop going to work out of fear? No. She was actually let go, basically, because of the same situation. A lot of what happened to the victims at the time was that once their bosses found out about their situation, they had to essentially prove themselves, not just to the government, but to their bosses, to the people in the community. Even in terms of going to the clinic, sometimes you're asked for documents. So a lot of her life was taken away from her. So she lost her job. And as we can see, I purposely wanted her to be an NHS orderly because so many of these victims are just like all of us. They have jobs all through the community, whether the bus driver, nurses, etc. And this is happening to so many of them. Mm-hmm. I like that you bring that up because they are very important in the community until the government doesn't want to see them that way. But when they were doing their work, it's fine.
Yeah.
But
and even for the bosses, they have to pay a fine. If they say to the boss, well, no, this person is illegal. If she cannot prove to them, well, no, I am British. He has to pay a fine for her, and the fine was extremely hefty. And that is how they managed to crucify a lot of these victims, in that they made it
that the bosses were policing, the doctors were policing, the pharmacists were policing. And you can imagine how within a community where all of that is around you, you feel restricted. You feel like you cannot go anywhere. So a lot of people hid themselves. And unfortunately for Valerie, she was trying to fight her way out of it.
Mm-hmm. So most of the people affected by the Windrush scandal had no reason to believe that they would need to prove their citizenship in a country that is all they knew, where their lives were actually established. So, Kaleb, why was the film one that you had to produce?
Wow, it's a really good question, because I think if you asked me in 2019, would I have done this film, I would have told you no, because as someone who came to the UK to do my master's in filmmaking, and especially being someone who's one of the only Black students on my course and the only Black director telling, in essence, the only graduation film with Black people in it and Black people at the center of my story, when conceptualizing, I didn't really want to rock the boat too much. I wanted to do my job and produce a film that was great and showed our experiences and our lived realities. But to tackle something so political was like, okay, maybe not. But then when COVID happened right before we were set to really go into pre-production to make, because we had another script planned. And then COVID happened and production basically shut down. And so that was the time for Kim and Ali, our producer, to come together and to really do research into the Windrush scandal. Because in 2019, when I was thinking of what I could do as a grad film, there was the Jamaica 50 charter flights that were set to happen in February in early 2020. And then at the same time, there were all these talks about the Windrush scandal coming up, the resurgence of that in the news. And so I wanted to look at that, but in a much more, I wanted to look at it, but I wasn't sure in what form yet. And so when COVID happened, it really gave us this opportunity to do the research, to speak with journalists, to speak with people who were deported, to speak with people who were victims of the scandal themselves. And I think that process gave me the strength to say, well, actually, no one else is going to tell this story. And so let's do it. Let's really go full speed with this, because this is something that I feel strongly about as a Jamaican, Kim as a Caribbean person, even Ali as a Nigerian, also a Nigerian immigrant. Us all felt this strong sense of urgency, and I guess you could say responsibility to tell the story. And also Kim was because the original script looked a lot more like Eli and his story, and I was mirroring his story with a lot of my experiences being an immigrant in London, and how do I navigate London life. But then Kim said, let's really look at Valerie's story and what would she have gone through? What would she actually have gone through? And that's really how No Entry was born. Honestly, just through Kim saying, let's take a minute and really investigate this. And that's how the story really came to be.
That's one of the things that, although the last 2 years has been a trying time for the world, a lot of people had to really slow down. And I think that time was very beneficial, especially in the Black community, for producing content, because you really had to just buckle down and say, all right, well, we can't do much. So the story needs to be deeper. The content needs to be deeper. So I'm glad that you had that moment, because it's either sink or swim with 2020. So I like that you guys had that opportunity to really dive deeper into it, because No Entry, we got it. Yeah. Okay, so moving on to Susan. One of the most heart-wrenching but systematically on-brand moments of No Entry is when we see Valerie stuck in an endless runaround for information. Then the letter shows up. Susan, what was the most challenging part about playing those moments in Valerie?
Do you know, I think it's knowing that this is going on, knowing that it continues to go on, knowing that so many people like Paulette Wilson, before they get what's due to them, before they get their day of justice in court, legal aid has gone now. So unless you're a rich person, you can't take the government to court. And the government the Home Office can drag its feet about giving people compensation for wrecking their lives. And there've been articles recently about how people are basically dying before they have their day in court with the government. So when you know that this is a hot topic and it's something that's ongoing, and even more importantly, so few people, you say hostile environment, say those two words to the majority of people, they don't know what you're talking about, even now. So all those things were playing on my mind. And I did another play about hostile environment, about a Jamaican woman in Wales who had lived in Wales all her life. Since she was 2-3 years old, same thing, came in on her mother's passport and had to do a lot of research there. I was horrified. That was the first time I really got to grips with hostile environment, what was going on. And so, yeah, I suppose those scenes, you know, when that letter comes and, you know, she knows she's going to be separated from her son and she's just been on the runaround. And most of it's computerized now. They're not dealing with people, they're dealing with files. And the people, the Home Office staff, civil servants that are doing this are very, very young, and they're not being quality assured. And yet these are people's lives, and they've got too much work. The files are piling up. A lot of them are computer generated. Because of the last recession, they removed a lot of the staff from the Home Office that were dealing with this. And so that letter, can you imagine your whole life hangs on a computer generated letter? So yeah, all that was in my mind, you know, as she's standing in the kitchen, just crying out of sheer frustration and fear, because you just don't believe it's happening to you, and yet it is.
I can only imagine having to really put yourself in that situation, because again, like you said, it's not imaginary, it's real. So we could definitely see that emotion on the screen. So thank you for that performance, because I know that it's definitely something, although acting is your job, but it's definitely still something that is hard because there is a lot of emotion, history, grief. There's too much attached to it. So thank you so much.
And I just want to say thank you to Kaleb as well, because he was so amazing in holding the two of us through this process, because I think it was tough, because, you know, we're people of color. It was from an acting perspective, it was tough for both myself and the other actor, and Kaleb he'd find quiet moments for us where we could do the scenes. And, you know, sometimes it would impact us in a really real way. We had our director there just to hold the space for us so that we could really, let out those feelings, you know, of the situation. So thank you, Kaleb.
Thank you, Sue. I'm low-key tearing up right now, because just putting myself back on that because it was the last day and we shot those two final scenes, those big scenes when Susan gets the letter, and then obviously what happens after. And I woke up that day just feeling so sick. I felt terrible, and doing all of those scenes were just the most difficult things in my career. It was very emotionally draining and difficult, and so every time I think about it, I'm like, it's almost like I'm there on the day again, and I'm like, ooh, like it is rough. It was a rough day, but, you know, thank you, Sue, and it was a great moment to just share that experience with you and Tongo.
Oh, blessings.
So I am a little bit curious about the dynamic between Valerie and Eli. She coddles and, dare I say, enables him in a way. It feels like a foreshadowing that Eli is about to have a hard time without mommy, and he doesn't even know it. Can you talk about the choice to make him really rely on her so heavy? He was a little bit of a mama's boy, so talk about that decision for me. You guys can take turns.
Kim, go.
Yeah, Kim.
I think that's easily answered. You know, he's a Caribbean boy. I don't know if Kaleb can confirm this, but as Caribbean people, we do it. You know, the son or the daughter doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how old you are. You're coddled. Maybe it's also in the Black community too. I think even more so. It doesn't matter if you're Caribbean, if you're African. It doesn't matter. It's just the way the mother is like the bedrock of the family. You know, yes, of course, you have the idea of the father, you know, taking care of the family, but no, mommy. When mommy says something, it goes. You know, and she's like that. And I was kind of drawing on that. I was drawing on the fact that yes, she's British, but she's also within a community, and it's a Caribbean community, and she's a single mom. I'm sure from the film you would have gotten that there's a little bit of a dark history with Daddy, and because of that dark history with Daddy and that past relationship, she is very protective of Eli. So she wants him to go on the right path. You know, she wants him to do the right things, and even without the situation in happening. Even without that, she would have still have coddled him in a way. She would have still have been trying to teach him to do the right things and carry on the right way. So all those things that she said to him, I'm sure she would have said them anyway in another situation, you know. But now, because this thing is happening to her, it's even more so, you know. And subconsciously, she's even angrier and frustrated when he doesn't do the right thing. So there's a bit of coddling and stuff, which is natural, but it's also for different reasons.
Anybody else want to add anything else to that?
I feel like Kim just said it all, but I think, they have a very real, you know, mother-son relationship, like, especially when you're a single parent and you create a dynamic, you know, with mommy in the house. I feel like they have a routine, and I think even in the film, like, we kind of touch on that sense of like routine in their house a bit. But what is the hidden layers and meanings that Susan isn't saying to him? And exactly what you said, Robin, just like amping up this kind of tension, like, okay, Eli's gonna get a hard blow at the end of the film. And I think in some ways it was like one of the reasons when kind of creating the script, like ending on, because we talked a lot about, okay, who do we end on? You know, it's Valerie's story, but to end on Eli, like, what are we saying by ending on Eli? Is it really Eli's story? But I think that there is this kind of like transition of like, this has been Valerie's story, and now to end on Eli and the son, and like the weight of all the information that he's now gotten, and his reality, and just to sit with him as he kind of absorbs it and breaks down, I think was very intentional as well.
I like that, because even like Kim said, I'm Jamaican, I'm Caribbean. I'm very attached to my father, because after I asked the question, she started talking. I'm like, well, you're right. Because even at my big age, even if I need to call my father, he's 30 minutes away, and that's too far for me. So not to simplify the situation, but I could only imagine how he would feel, because no, my whole world would drop through the ground if I had to experience something like that. And even though they're so close, we definitely still see that she's so terrified to disappoint him with this truth. And that's the crazy part of this whole Windrush scandal, because she's taking on that that guilt and that anxiety, like other people who are going through this situation, who actually went through the situation, but none of them actually did anything wrong. So I know I kind of went in there a little bit, but do you want to expand on that as well? Because there is kind of that ownership, but none of them did anything wrong except exist. Can we talk about that a little bit?
I mean, from Valerie's perspective, I mean, how can you fathom it? You've worked as a housekeeper for the National Health Service for over 30 years. The onus is now put on you to prove. You have to find people you went to school at reception from the age of 3 to 5. How many of us could do that? How many of us? And the older you get, the more difficult it is to go back and say, do you remember me from school? You have to find someone that remembers you, and even that doesn't let you off the hook, all because the Home Office got rid of all the papers where people came in with on their mother's passports in order to digitalize. And yet the onus is on her. I just don't think that she can believe it. She can't believe it. She wants to protect Elijah. She wants to protect him. And I think in her mind, she's sort of thinking, she's thinking, this can't be happening. There will be a way out of it. Yeah. And yet there isn't.
You're correct.
There isn't. It's just, she keeps thinking she's going to wake up from this awful nightmare. And yet she doesn't. And that must be how people feel. I mean, if it were to happen to me, I came in on my mum's passport. I've lived in England all my life. And what, they're going to send me back to Nigeria? Just like that, where I don't really, most of my extended family live abroad as well. Some are in the States, some are in Canada like you, Robin. And you can't take it in. And it's absolutely, in fact, I think at some point, I mean, we're going to have to wait for COVID to go down, but I think this is a case for the European Court of Human Rights, whether we're Brexited or not. Because as you say, Robin, this is nobody's fault. Well, it's certainly the Home Office's fault.
It's their fault.
It's their fault. It's a perfect storm. No legal aid. You've got no chance of going to fight your case. And it's all left to them, and they can do what they like. And meanwhile, people have had heart attacks. They've been dragged out of their house to go on these on these flights in the middle of the night, screaming, crying. People have seen them at the airport. I mean, there's a line that Kim wrote when Eli goes to see his mum in the detention centre, and he's saying, "Mum, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me?" And she, gosh, I feel a little bit choked up. She says, "I didn't know what to say." How can you know what to say in such a situation? And all she wants to do, it's just been her and him. She just wants to protect her son. And at the 11th hour, what she realizes is that she can't. All she can do is give him some quick words. Look after yourself, be strong, I'll find a way to come back. But that line, Kim, I didn't know what to say. How can you?
And I think, one of the challenges before we shot was like, how do we tell this very complex, bureaucratic nightmare in one location with as minimal actors as possible? Because remember, the idea for this was happening right when we had our lockdown in March. So we were writing this script, and we were basically, as Goldsmith students, in limbo as to when we were shooting. We didn't know what a COVID set would even look like. And so now, luckily, I have experience working on COVID sets, but it's just so interesting because in September, October, when we shot this, I think it was October, when we shot this, this was when things were just being greenlit to shoot. And so a lot of these kind of grand ideas about how to, really portray this bureaucratic nightmare and ended up being kind of stripped back in the script. So I'm really happy to hear, Robin, that you still feel it, and it still comes through. you know, because it really was it is such a complex story. And it's like, how do you fully tell this story in one location and minimal character, and as minimal characters as possible, or minimal actors as possible? And so I'm happy that this film, you know, really begins to get more people to really look into it and to have that discussion and realize all these weird intricacies that Susan was just talking about. Like, how do you tell someone that they have to gather their whole life and put it in a box? In doing the research for this film, there's a documentary, I think it's on YouTube, I can get the information for you later, and there really is an image of this older man in the Windrush with a suitcase, just like in the film, with his whole life packed in a box. And that image alone is heartbreaking, you know? So yeah, it really is a very heartbreaking and just like complex and dynamic or complex story and truth.
I do want to say something. The reason why I think that it works is because of the fact that, first of all, I'm just now starting to get more information about what the Windrush scandal really is, to be completely honest. When these types of things happen, if I'm being completely honest, I don't want to see the faces of the oppressors and the colonizers. I don't too tough really even care about their side of things to an extent, because it's really black and white for me. Because you can see the system of how Black bodies are continuously disrespected. So I appreciate the level of isolation that was in this film, because you just saw the emotion between the mother and the son. And I think sometimes when these scandals come out, the emotion is taken away from the people, and they're kind of, I want to say they're kind of dehumanized in a sense because of the scandal. You guys brought it back to a very human level that I think was important. Because if it would be different if there was a more heavy focus on the whole bureaucracy part of it, and if we saw some of the officers, and if we saw some of the oppressors, I'm just gonna say it because they're oppressors, but I enjoyed not even seeing them, because it's not about them, it's about the families. So that is why I think that what you did and it being in one place, it worked out. The universe made sure that it worked out how it was supposed to work out for you all with this film, and it was good. So that's all I wanted to say, because not enough people talk about that. Sometimes we don't want to see them no more. We already know who they are, but they let us be stripped of who we are, and you gave it back in those characters. So thank you.
I really appreciate that, because, and you are very right with saying that, because on set, the moment those two actors playing border guard entered that room, there was a shift.
Exactly.
The moment they arrived on set, everyone actually thought they were really police. Like they were real. Like it was a very weird, as I said, it was a very weird day. But that moment, there was a shift. When the first take of that scene, when you heard that knock, there was a shift. And it really just changed the dynamic of the film, because obviously the last, it was a 4-day shoot. The 3 days, it was all about the mom and the son, and it was great. It was cute. It was nice. And then, there's drama, there's the story, but it was about them. Mm-hmm. And then on that last day, when we shot those 2 heavy scenes, there was a shift, and the whole set was like quiet for most of the day. And especially, myself, Susan, Tonga, we were really going through it. So because I guess it really hit home, seeing their bodies in our space that we've created, this little home that we've created in a house. You know, everyone, Susan had her room, Tonga had his room. Like, it really felt like we were a family working every day in this house on set. It was great. And then on that last day, there was a huge shift. So you are very right in saying that. And it's, looking back, it just is just really interesting to hear that, because it really puts things into perspective as well.
I'm glad that you can confirm that too, then, because that's just what I was feeling. I'm like, no, I don't want to see them. I need to see this relationship between these two people. I don't want to see nobody else. So just hearing how it actually felt like that on set, that says something. Because again, as they're actors, but this is real.
Yeah.
It's real. So I love it. I love it.
Well, it's interesting too, because I don't know if I can say, Kaleb, but one of the first versions of the script, I didn't want to see them at all. I didn't want to show them. I actually, you remember, Kaleb? I just had the knock, and we heard the knock, and we didn't actually see them. So we actually had a whole discussion about, should we see them? Should we not see them?
Yeah, we did.
It was interesting. We were probably feeling the same way. We don't want to see these people.
Yeah.
But you have to face them. You have to have it. You have to show that.
But I'm glad that, again, the focus was not them.
Yeah.
For me, at least, watching it, the focus was not them. I was like, whatever. But it was still a very important moment. And it did just tie in, okay, the emotion that this mother and son are going through, we feel it. Like, you really feel it. In that short span of time, you felt a lot. A lot. Sorry, I think I did cut you, Susan. Did you want to add something?
All I was going to add was that from an acting perspective, I think Tonga would agree with me. It was actually good to have them there, because it really gave you something to emote with, something to really get down into that feeling of, this is what it would be like. They'd literally come, break down your door, and carry you out.
Do y'all have plans for the film after it comes out of its festival run?
Well, it's Third Horizon is the first film festival it premiered at Third Horizon. And so there are a lot of festivals. We haven't received any noses yet, which is great. And so I'm happy that No Entry will actually have a full festival, which we all intended for it to have a full festival run for the next year, you know? So what I'm hoping is that this year we spark conversations and see where the film can go and what can really come out of it. We knew coming in that we were talking about something that needed to be addressed. And so we just hope that even just doing chats like this and having that conversation will help to spark more conversation or change. That is more so what we want. And so right now, I mean, we are, I guess you could say, just seeing what happened. We're very open to whatever, you know, comes out of the film. But there are no immediate plans right now.
Okay. I'm definitely excited to see where it goes. I really feel like the universe and the energy will do what it needs to do, because a lot of that is what has happened with this film. So it's going to do what it needs to do. I'm happy about that. And then before we go, I want to know what everybody is working on. I always ask, whenever I do any interview, let me know. Give me an inside scoop if you can. I won't tell nobody. So y'all can take turns, because I definitely want to know what everybody has going on.
Susan, go.
Well, honestly, Robin, not that much. I think, you know, because I do quite a bit of theatre. And film, obviously, and things are a bit slow to open up, so I'm self-taping like crazy. I've got a lot of things in the fire. I can't really talk about them until they come into fruition, if they come into fruition. But all I'll say is watch this space.
Okay, I'll take it. All right, Kim?
A few things. I have 2 more films. One more short that I am seeking funding for that should be coming out soon. Another short that I want to put into festivals. I'm working on a play and also on a TV script as well. Okay. So a few things.
Busy as no things are going on. Like it. All right, Caleb, what's up?
It's funny because whenever you talk to creatives, they're always like, I can't tell you till it comes out. And it kind of
literally, and I'm like begging, can I have something?
Right? But luckily, there are a few things happening this year which I'm so thankful for. Like out of Goldsmiths, I got funding from the Commonwealth Foundation to do another short in Jamaica. So I'm heading back to Jamaica in August to do that. I'll also be in the National Biennial, or the Biennial exhibition at the National Gallery of Jamaica, which opens in December. So I'm doing a video exhibition with that as well. So I'm happy about those 2 major projects. And then there are a lot of other things that's happening, like working on a web series with Goldsmiths and just other few little things that I'm writing and doing the work, a new emerging director during this time. It's hard and it's a lot of work, but I'm trying to do the work. So yeah, watch this space, as they say.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Caleb, Kim, and Susan, for spending this time with me today and having great conversations. And thank you for watching Julie Mango TV. Subscribe for more conversations with Caribbean filmmakers. I'm Robin Bourne, and I will see you next time.